Welcome to the SBCA podcast, Component Connection, where we explore the people, ideas, trends, and innovations shaping the structural framing industry. Regardless of how you touch this industry, we're glad you're here. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, I'm Molly Butz, Managing Director for SBCA, and I'll be your host for this episode of Component Connection, Lumber Insights. I'm joined today by Justin Binning and Ken Timmins. Justin and Ken are lumber traders from American International Forest Products, or AIFP. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Thank you, Molly. How's it going, Molly?
Not too bad. Good to see you guys again.
Great to see you.
As always, it's been a few weeks, but I think our audience is ready to hear it. So let's just talk a little bit about what's been happening in the lumber market since the last Lumber Insights.
Dry in most of the world. I know Ken's probably going to give us kind of the fire forecast or what's going on, but yeah, we're covered in smoke here in the Portland metro area and have been for a few days. And so there's a fair amount of fires that are lingering to the north and south of us right now. But so that's kind of been our reality, what we're living in right now. And, you know, again, in terms of how it relates exactly to lumber production and consumption, Ken will have definitely some insight there. But my area of focus, obviously, with yellow pine lumber, there has been some shift in the market. We were in a prolonged up for, I don't know, 8 to 10 weeks there. We've crested off. We're kind of in our, I guess you'd say, our third week in a downward trend, led by 4-inch and 6-inch out of the east. So that's kind of where it originally started, which is pretty normal for the amount of production that is coming out of the east. And it's kind of like a bad cold, right? It just kind of spreads to the central zone, spreads west. But again, 2x4, number 2, 2x6, number 2, and in number 1, those have been primarily the heaviest items affected in terms of pricing. MSR, on the other hand, has held its own. It's really hung tough in this market over the last 3 weeks. Very difficult to source still. There is some availability in the 4-inch and 6-inch, but price concessions have been limited to nil. When we talk about the wider length lumber, 2x10, 2x12, been almost non-existent in the MSR grades, especially in the longs. Anything 16, 18, 20 foot, very difficult to source. With all that said, you know, there is a level of liquidity that remains out there. Again, if you can find it, get your hands on it. That trade is still happening pretty, you know, there's a little pushback there. On the 4-inch and 6-inch, there's definitely the counters are coming in. A lot are being rebuffed from the mills. The mills are kind of setting a standard for pricing that they want to see. And if they get it that day, which they've been able to, I feel like most days, great. Anything countered below that, not really interested. They'll hold the line and see what the next day brings them. So overall, I would say, you know, the pace has cooled off a bit. There are still orders out there, and job sites, obviously in the U.S. South, with the temperatures that have been down there, have slowed things. So we've taken our foot off the pedal a little bit. And again, I mean, as any good lumber trader, I guess we always tend to speak out of both sides of our mouth because there's always two things always feel like happening simultaneously. You can have a softer market, but still have good takeaway or better takeaway, right? So the orders are still out there. We're still plugging away every single day and just trying to find what the level is for that particular customer, right? So we try, you know, I use the old saying, don't desk your own deal. And that's, you know, we're trying not to do that and advise our customers, try to present offers and see what sticks. So transportation's been a bit better out of the South in terms of trucks. Still not perfect by any means, and prices are still elevated, but we are seeing some lanes start to free up a bit, and we're seeing some of the pricing come back to us and to our customers, which has been great. Rail car capacity ever so slightly getting a little bit better, but still backlogged on the rail cars. So if there's a producer asking for 10 cars a day, they're getting half. But 2-3 weeks ago, they're getting a quarter of what they're requesting. So again, some improvement there, but we're not out of the yuck yet. So, and then like I said, truck capacity ever so slightly getting better, depends on the lane, anything from central zone, east side, heading up into the upper Midwest, still very difficult. A lot of loads that are trying to go there and not a lot of trucks to service those particular lanes. So that has been trickier. Rates still high there, but in your kind of U.S. South traveling along throughout Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into Texas with, I'll call it shorter holes, maybe less than 350 miles. Those lanes seem to be moving more efficiently, and the price seems to be not what I'd say the standard was a year ago, but it's not to the top of what we'd seen and been paying maybe over the last 90 to 120 days. So a little bit of a reprieve there. So yeah, that's kind of the overview snapshot that we're seeing in the current marketplace right now in Yellow Pine. And Kenny, take it away and talk about what's happening out of the West.
Couple fun things before I start screaming about forest fires. One, we're getting close to BCMC. Very excited to see everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everyone who listens and participates in the podcast. Love to shake your hand and introduce myself in person. If you see me, say hi.
It's crazy. That's almost here. And it's also crazy. And side note that summer's like school starting in from 30 days.
I was at Target the other day. They were selling Halloween candy. I was like, come on, it's still July. Give me a break. Absolutely crazy. So naturally, I bought 6 bags and went on my merry way.
The
So
only
that's cool.
thing to do.
Also, I did see in the Random Lengths yardstick, they gave us a shout out, and specifically Molly, which was pretty fun to see. So that was a cool little piece of media that we caught over the last week. So that's fun. On the lumber side of things, forest fires really are the big headline right now. We've been talking about it for 6 months. We've been saying it's going to be the worst we've seen in a long time, which is terrible news. I don't know a single person in our airspace who ever high fives over something like that. And it's a tragedy. Justin and I are lucky enough to live in a very beautiful state naturally. And I drove from the bottom tip of Southern Oregon all the way back up to the northern border yesterday, and it was socked in smoke the entire way. Looking at the smoke maps, there's really the whole Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Vancouver, BC, stretching all the way to like Kelowna, is in a lot of bad air quality, smoke, entrapment, let's call it. And there is an obscene amount of fires. If anybody wants maps or visuals or anything, reach out to me and I'll get them over to you. A lot of these fires are on top of where sawmill production lies. Not all of it. I mean, there's still plenty of mills that are really in no threat, which is great news. But there are several mills that are right in the hot spots of places that are being evacuated. Could have some serious implications in the market. And market aside, more importantly, just don't want to see that resource go to waste and people be displaced and structures burned and all the things that go along with that. Super important, heavy on our hearts. Unfortunately, that is a call that we've been making for a long time it's true. And I mean, it's not just us. That's not a hot take by any means. I think a lot of people knew this was coming.
Yeah.
And it's here. So
it's also unfortunate. I mean, reading so much about these, I know I'm veering off topic, but a lot of man-provided fire, right? Like it's, they're saying a vast majority of these this is not because of lightning. Right. So that's unfortunate. But
anyways. Totally is. There's a few Oregon mills that are very close to the fires. There's a few Washington, Idaho mills that are also very close to the fires. So keeping a close track on that could goof up production. And then also really the Canadian sawmills have not been a major factor in the market this year, really leading to a supply side push that most didn't account for, which is for the fir market being strong for the last 9 months. A lot of people have been banking on the fact that tariffs will be peeled back a little bit in August, which may happen, may not happen. It's still a little bit up in the air. But let's just, in the instance where tariffs are a little more favorable for Canadians to bring product into the U.S. market, they are under a lot of these fires as well. So kind of a safety valve in terms of price might not be as available to consumers as previously hoped. So that's important. Justin touched on trucking. Trucking is still very difficult. Super high prices. Availability is mediocre. And there's a lot of reasons we've talked about over the years for that, and reasons that really are not going away anytime soon. So that's just part of the daily trade right now. Market trends in fur are all over the place. Green species are a little bit softer right now. Dry species are product to product. There's a really big variance between sawmills on, you could have $125 1,000 difference from mills that are neighboring, so to speak. You can get discounts depending on if there's a buildup somewhere, and then the mill might be at or above print on everything else. And you hear all sorts of things. There is a I've seen every strategy to attack the market over the last 6 months kind of evenly sprinkled throughout the country. Everybody's skinned the cat a different way, so to speak. I think there over the last few months have been guys who are staying cautiously optimistic and keeping a little bit of wood on the ground. There are other guys who have been cautiously pessimistic and keeping it pretty thin to the pavement. I think right now with all the confusion, the latter group is bullying the pot, so to speak, and kind of creating a stir. So if you hear wild things, don't be shocked. There are wild things being said all over the place.
Mhm.
Some of them true, some of them embellished.
Mhm.
So it's a good time to be steady Eddie and not overly emotional with things you hear. I mean, I would really focus on running your business as lean as you can in terms of not going outside the usual comfort zone in terms of product mix, or I would just keep the boat going right through the waves. I don't think you need to get super long on anything. I don't think you need to get too negative on the market and run it down to the pavement, because we are still in the supply side driven market, and supply is being threatened every day by the natural disasters. I think there's a lot of business out there. I'm seeing a lot of multifamily jobs all over the country in the major hubs you'd expect. Any city that has a major league sports franchise has multifamily jobs that you get bought at. You know, those are the places that have jobs been kicked and jobs been kicked and jobs been kicked, and now I need a bunch of trucks 2 weeks or sooner.
And it still feels underbought. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The market definitely still feels underbought. I'm kind of in agreement with that.
Yeah. And again, I mean, if you asked,
Even with a lot of buying going on,
Yeah.
right, over the past couple of months, it's still,
if you ask 10 lumber buyers their opinion on the market, you're going to get 25 opinions back. Make that make sense. No one knows what exactly to do. A lot of people are speaking out of both sides of their mouth, depending on who they're speaking to. There's a lot of that going on. And I don't know. I was never a big Jeff Dunham guy. Ventriloquy freaks me out. I think it's ridiculous. Get the puppets off your hand. I think it's a much easier process to just be very clear and communicative and be honest, and cards flipped over all the time when you're dealing in these kind of things. There's no sense in smoke and mirrors. There's no sense in trying to create a ruse anywhere. I just think that the simpler you keep it for the next few months, the better it is for your bottom dollar and leveraging your materials to run a business efficiently and profitably, is my opinion. Yeah. Of all the times that we've talked throughout the year, I think August, September of this year is the time to be straightforward, very communicative, and keep it simple.
It's interesting. I'm sorry to hear the fires are as bad as they are. I went back while you were talking about that, Ken, and see that it was actually like early March when you said we are going to have one of the worst, if not the worst, forest fire season of all time. And I really hope you were wrong about that, but I'm sure that was based on a lot of science coming out of that area. And I'm sorry to hear it's come true. There are enough headwinds in our industry right now to not have to be dealing with that also. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think you guys both did just give some pretty good advice going into these next couple of months, but I just want to make sure that I don't cut us off and finish things off before you've said all the things that you might like to say, just to sort of give everyone a heads up, both going into the show and also just going into the fall. Is like you said, school starts up again, and we're still a little bit on the struggle bus with regard to starts and projects staying strong. So anything else?
I mean, I think when we're talking U.S. South, when we started kind of this downtrend, and Ken touched on it, right? Like the level of liquidity or the amount of wood and being underbought. My take on it was with the truck logistics difficulties that we had, time that it took for wood to kind of move through the channel. I really felt like there was a lot more wood bought that had to get through the system. And I felt like that's what kind of gave the extra strength to the market that we were in, and where it kind of broke out of that 4 to 6 week channel that had been living in. And I really saw the other side of that being, or probably mirror that with kind of an extended down, right? Because there's being all this extra wood that was being bought because you couldn't get what you wanted. You couldn't get the 2 trucks, but the guy had a car and it could ship quick. So he bought the car, but then that got delayed, and then somebody else could buy a truck, and I could get it there in 5 days, so I bought that too, and I needed 2 trucks. Now I got 6 or 5 coming, right?
Yeah.
It just felt like there was a lot that was kind of going on, and people finally started to buy into the fact that, man, this isn't getting any better anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I better buy some extra wood, right? And so what I find kind of fascinating right now, I really felt like when this market kind of shifted, we'd start hearing the crickets, right? And it would just be very quiet, very difficult. Everyone's hiding. PO books are closed. No orders kind of flowing, new orders flowing through the system. I was expecting to look up there and see really static sales days. And again, it just how you look up and there's 100 plus sales every day and the liquidity is still there. And so I guess what I would finish with is we're not out of the woods in terms of the logistical issues that we've been having. Don't necessarily bet against this market. If you've got an idea that you think that you're trying to achieve from a pricing standpoint in relation to print or however you go about, your pricing and look at pricing, make sure you have some really honest conversations, to finish up with Ken's point and have that dialogue, because I think some of them might be a little crazy and we're not going to get there. I think the producers still hold a lot of leverage in being able to keep the price elevated. So if you think we're going back to kind of yearly lows or we're going to get close to that level or something like that, I would strongly urge you to dig into with whoever you trust and kind of relook at that, because I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
And I think there's more strength in the market than one could go and bet against, right? So just be careful. That's all I would say. And make sure you're continuing to stay in front of your needs, right? I still like that 2 to 3 week kind of outlook, and that communication dialogue should be happening not a week before you need something. That's going to cause you a lot of headaches and a lot of trouble that you don't need to have. And if you think, well, if the longer I wait, the better the price is going to be, not necessarily, right? There may be a deal that day that that's going to fit what you need in the next 2 weeks, and you won't see that deal again. Right? Even if print is coming down or whatever, it doesn't always have a relation to what's actually happening in the marketplace. So be astute, be sharp right now. Don't ignore, the market and what's going on and just think, oh, I got plenty of time. The market's going down. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Stay in tune with it, stay sharp with it. That would be my advice.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Excellent. You've both long talked about finding a trader you trust and having good conversations. And it sounds like now's the time more than ever to be doing exactly that. And if you don't have someone you trust, give one of these guys a call. I think with that, we'll wrap up our episode. Justin, Ken, thank you so much for your continued expertise and enthusiasm. And thank you all out there for listening to SBCA's podcast, Component Connection. If you've enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please like it and share it with others. Stay up to date and in the know by subscribing to Component Connection on whatever podcast platform you use most. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks for listening to Component Connection, brought to you by SBCA. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore in a future episode, email us at podcast@sbcacomponents.com.